Good morning, everyone. Howdy, and welcome to the March edition of Cattle Trails Showcase. I'm Ron Wilson, Poet Laureate. Glad to be your host. You know, the purpose of the Cattle Trails Showcase is to continually highlight the communities, the historical elements, museums, and other attractions along the historic cattle trails. Lonnie Stephen is our showcase chair. The Cattle Trails Showcase was initiated 4 years ago, hard to believe, been 4 years, by the International Chisholm Trail Association, now as a project of the Cattle Trails Consortium, which seeks to promote all of the historic cattle trails, the Chisholm Trail, Western Trail, Great Western Trail, Shawnee, and the Goodnight Loving Trails. One thing we've learned about the Western and the Great, also known as Great Western Trail, is that it went a long ways north. And I think sometimes that is forgotten. As the National Park Service feasibility study stated, and I quote, hundreds of cattle herds were driven north to the territories of Wyoming, Montana, and Dakota, as it said, and some herds continued as far north as the Canadian provinces of Alberta and Saskatchewan, close quote. Well, today we have with us someone who's deeply embedded in the Western history of North Dakota, and we're so pleased to have Darrell Dorgan with us. Darrell is president of DaKom Communications in North Dakota. He's actually joining us from Florida, I believe, today. He's received more than 50 awards for national, regional, and state journalistic excellence. There's a long, long list of awards, and I'm not going to go through them, but I note a couple of things. One, he led the effort to build the North Dakota Cowboy Hall of Fame and was executive director of that organization. He was appointed by President Obama to the American Battle Monument Commission, appointed by President Clinton to the President's Advisory Committee for the Arts, the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts in Washington, D.C. Among many other roles and awards, he was chairman of the North Dakota Great Western Cattle Trail Commission. We've asked Darrell to talk to us today about North Dakota's Western-oriented trail activities. His company has done many historic documentaries, been involved with the Cowboy Hall of Fame, as mentioned, done some great work on Theodore Roosevelt history, and there's even plans for a future Theodore Roosevelt Museum Presidential Library in North Dakota. So very pleased to welcome Darrell Dorgan. Darrell, please tell us about cowboy activities in North Dakota. And you'll need to unmute. Not unmuted yet. On my screen, it's the lower left corner where I have the option.
How about that? Does that work? Does that work? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And on my screen, that is not where the option is.
Darrell, this is Lonnie. I can hear you. I don't know if anybody else can hear you or not.
You're
Okay.
good, Darrell. You're good. Go ahead.
All right, listen, thank you. And thank you for the more than little embarrassing introduction there. 30 seconds or 10 seconds would have been fine. I'm just a kid who grew up in a town of 120 people in North Dakota. So, yeah, I'm in Florida, and I apologize for being late this morning. And the reason I was is we have a condo down here. We come down here about 3 months a year, and I had a neighbor across the way who slipped and fell down the stairs this morning, and I took and ran him to a hospital, and I will turn that off right now in just a second here. It's been that kind of a morning. Anyway, we started the Great Western Cattle Trail a number of years ago. Sylvia Mahoney called me out of the blue, and spent some time talking to her, and we got that going. And we already had, I had been in broadcasting. I did television news for 25 years, and I decided, you reached a point where you're long in the tooth, being kind about it, and I wanted to do something different. And I've always been a history buff, and so they asked me if I would take this Cowboy Hall of Fame project on, and so I did, and would probably not want to do it again. But I started out with 4 people and ended up with 1,200 members, and we built this in Medora. and it has won a lot of awards. It's beautiful and it preserves history. And I always think of Thomas Jefferson when I think of history and how important it is. Thomas Jefferson once said, "Any man who wants to be ignorant and free wants what never was and never will be." And there's a lot of ignorance in this country about our history, and it's being forgotten. And I find it very disturbing, okay? If you go from Texas all the way to Canada, through middle America, this country's dying. And I know you don't like to hear that, but and it's not in Oklahoma City and Denver and Bismarck and places where we've got oil and things like that. But all of the small towns that most of us grew up in, again, I grew up in a town of 120 people. Those towns are dying, and you know, you just shake your head. And the median age of people who still live there, going up. The number of schools are closing, and that's our history. That's our life. That's what built this country, and I want to see it preserved. And so then it got going. Sylvia called and asked if I would take this project on. And I, you know, I was dumb enough to say yes, so I did it. And uh, we didn't have any money, and we had a couple members, and but you know, I got lucky. If you're on television for a number of years, everybody knows you, and so I walked into a ready mix place in Dickinson, North Dakota, with a picture of a 7 foot high pole. It said Great Western Cattle Trail on it, painted in red letters and very nicely done. And talked to the guy who ran the place and said, you know, we want to build this, and we want to put a big post up every 6 miles. And he said, well, how many members do you have? And I fudged a lot on that, um, a lot. And turned out he was kind of a history buff too. And he said, you know, I've got all these trucks that come in here at night and they've got concrete left on them, you know, and we got to wash them out and everything. Why don't you guys just build some forms, give us the forms, and, you know, we'll just pour them every night. And how many do you want? And I was, you know, I said, well, boy, to get started, 4 or 5 would be great. And he said, well, you know, we've got a lot of concrete coming and going, so why don't we just pour about 70 or 80 of them? And they did. I mean, you know, I got you got basically a $50,000 gift, and at that point, once you had that, it was easy to line up members. And I grew up in southwestern North Dakota, so I happen to know a lot of people, and simply call them, and we'd get together and talk about it. And within 2 years, we had the post done. We had, I think, about 100 members, and we did not have permission from the highway department. But what I did is we just kept getting ranchers on board, and we'd pick out a spot every 5, 6, 7 miles that looked good that people could see, and we would put it inside the fence line so it could clearly be seen from the highway. The only opposition that we faced was from oil companies who fought us pretty hard, and because they're always afraid that if you do something like that, it's going to block their future of taking land or putting stuff up. And but we got it done. It took us 2 summers. We did it, and it was all volunteer. And I think we've got $2,000 left in the bank. Nobody ever got paid a dime on the thing, and it was you know, you're selling an idea. The fact that we're going to preserve your background, your story, and not only that, you know, as I said, it's dying out here in the country. You know, Kansas, North Dakota, South Dakota has the Black Hills. There are some spots that are good, but for the most part, it's just the little towns are dispersing. They're leaving. So, but most of them have a story that ties in with the Great Western Cattle Trail, and get them fired up and say, hey, you know, tell us that story. Tell us why it's important. Who were the first ranchers out here? You know, are their family members still here? And even today, I get phone calls from ranchers saying, "Say, could you come on out and put out one of them posts out here?" And yeah, we can. And it's just it's luck. Now I've got the state highway department is making Highway 85 a 4 lane because of the oil industry, And they called and said, well, you may have to move some of these. And I texted the governor and mentioned it to him, and he called the highway department, and they're moving them. Okay. So that works, and I just happen to know that the governor had relatives or forebears that were cowboys, and of course started off the conversation with that. That helped. But look, it's there. Yeah, let's get it done. Let's save Middle America. The tourism industry is not just the East Coast, the West Coast, or where I am in Florida for a couple months a year. It's Middle America. That's where America was built. That's where people came because of the 1862 Homestead Act and got 160 acres. That's where people drove up cattle and created the ranching industry that still is out there today. And we need to save it. Thank you. Questions?
Thank you so much, Darrell. I'll give you a virtual round of applause here.
Any questions at all?
Appreciate that. What can you tell us, Darrell, about the Theodore Roosevelt Museum? Where would that be, and how did that come about? And tell us anything you can share. Uh-oh, on my screen, Darrell's frozen up. Technology is fantastic when it works, and when it doesn't, it's a pain in the neck. Well, I know that Darrell has been involved in multiple projects. One, let's see if he's going to get off and come back in. There he is. We'll give him a minute to get back on with us.
Ever since we've had a problem here, ever since the hurricane last fall, believe me. I mean, it's really created a problem, and things quit and start. But yeah, Walmart has been big. The oil industry has been big. The Theodore Roosevelt Medora Foundation has kind of run things in Medora for years. They've always had some money. They've had some big sponsors, and that is going up. It'll be a $50 million project when it's done, and it's going to be a big draw, and it's going to celebrate the life of Theodore Roosevelt. He did not have a library. I was fortunate enough when I did the documentary uh, that I got access to the library at Harvard, where all of his stuff was stored in the basement. And so I was able to spend off and on 3 or 4 times there at Harvard. We shot there, we shot in North Dakota. Uh, Anytime we had a big name historian come through, shot him. And it took me a couple of years to put it together, but it's been very successful in promoting Theodore Roosevelt's connection to Medora, North Dakota. And it's going up, and it's going to be a big draw. And Medora has several other draws anyway. You've got the Medora musical, the Cowboy Hall of Fame, a lot of things going on out there. The Badlands themselves are absolutely stunning. But let me tell you, there's problems right now because of the cuts that are being made by Mr. Musk and the current president in the budget. They've cut people, and I don't know what's going to happen this summer as far as tourism is concerned there. But it's a popular place, and it also helps the entire area, all the way from Dickinson to the Montana line. It's an industry into itself, and it's what can happen if you get these projects going.
Darrell, we lost you for just a second. Hey, Steve, let me call on you in a sec. Darrell, we missed. What is the name of the documentary you did about Theodore Roosevelt?
Theodore Roosevelt, A Cowboy's Ride to the White House.
A Cowboy's Ride to the White House. Okay, I
Yep.
wanted to make sure we captured that. All right, Steve, go ahead, please.
Yeah, Darrell, one of the things I wanted to ask you, would you be willing to work with us with your legislators there in North Dakota on doing a bill in the House and Senate to make the Chisholm Trail and the Great Western Trail the National Historic Trail?
No, First of all, uh, I don't like the term, the different trails. I like just Great Western Trail and then tack on to them. But it is, the whole project is the Great Western Trail, and in my mind. But no, I mean, I obviously I'd help you, but I must tell you that I am not and never have been very popular with North Dakota legislators because I always kept a real jaundiced eye
Well,
on them, and they
one
have
of,
been forgotten.
one
Uh,
of the issues that we face is the bill was written by that was introduced to the House and Senate and signed by President Obama to make the Chisholm Trail and the Great Western Trail a National Historic Trail. And the National Park Service did a feasibility study and finished it in 2019. So the way it's written, the two trails are recognized and it will be managed under one group. And the reason they did that is the National Park Service figured they didn't have the money to have other districts manage the trail. So they put the two trails under one district. So they're managed together. So everything that happens involves the two trails.
and there's nothing wrong with that. I admit that. But if we just said, hey, if we were selling this, I spend a lot of time in Europe. We do a lot of video work in Europe too, and if we just had it, so we had the Great Western Trail, and then you had the offshoots that were run by the various states. So like this is boom, this is happening here, this is happening there. I think it would be a lot easier because of the fantastic cuts that are coming in federal services and with federal agencies in the next 3 years. In fact, taking place now. And they aren't going to be taking anything else on. Uh, so I would refer and defer to Sylvia, and I've worked with her over the years, and she's been very good. And if we had like one great piece where you could go to and type in and you could see the Great Western Trail and all the offshoots and what's in those cities. The one thing I would like to do in North Dakota is all of the posts that we have up is like every other one have a little connector to, and we could do it. It's doable. But the person that stops there and is reading the placard that's next to it telling, this is a Great Western Trail and this is what happened, they could press a button or go to their telephone that you could dial so and so. That's the way you could do it. And it would tell you what's going on for the summer months around that area. Got a rodeo in Dickinson on the 4th of July, got one in Mandan, got something going over in Bowman. It becomes an area uh, promoter, okay? And that's the way that I always envisioned it in North Dakota. But I'm open, okay?
Well,
That's a
one of
really
the
cool
things,
idea.
are you familiar with this? This is the National Park Survey that was done in 2019.
Yeah,
Have you seen that?
yeah.
So it's got a lot of that information in there. And one of the things, Texas is different from all the other states, is Johnson, when he was governor, put together a Texas Historic Commission under the governor's office and the state legislators. And the Texas Historic Commission gets funding from the state. Each county in the state of Texas has the opportunity to become a county historic commission under the umbrella of the state. I was chairman of the historic commission here in Texas, Fort Worth, for a number of years. I also was on the board of the Texas Lake Trails. They also divided the state of Texas into 10 regions. And I was on the lake trails, and we covered 32 counties on doing tourism and heritage tourism and programs. And it was 32 counties of promoting the history and the programs that's available from the state and the federal government.
Well, you've obviously done some great things in Texas, and I applaud you. And let me just also say that we're in a great time capsule here right now because with all of the Western stuff that has suddenly started to appear on television again, uh, there's obvious interest. Okay, I mean it's created a lot of interest. Another thing that very few people here seem to know is that Western history is amazingly popular in Europe. Amazingly popular. In Great Britain, for instance, we have the Custer Association of Britain. Yeah, the Custer Association of Britain. They have about 300 members. You go to Germany, every German city has an Indian club, and they meet maybe once a month, but they pick out a tribe and they work with that tribe and creating and do the history and they get together and they argue and that kind of thing. So the interest is there overseas. If we could get a website together that we could play overseas and show all of this stuff on and have one name and then the offshoots, then I think we'd be in business, okay?
You are correct. I spent 10 years working for the Japanese. I went to Japan. I spent time going through their programs. After I worked with them, I spent 10 years with the Germans in Germany, and I spent my rest of my career working for the Danish in Denmark. And I always wore my cowboy clothes wherever I went and told the cowboy story. And you're
Yeah.
right. Here in Fort Worth, last year they had 4 million people come to the stockyards. They're predicting there's going to be 6 million this year. The city of Fort Worth is spending $1 billion on fixing up the stockyards here in Fort Worth because of
Yeah.
the people coming around. Now, Doug Harmon and Doug was the city manager. We did like 5 documentary films on the stockyards for all the different countries and all the different states on promoting heritage tourism and the history of the American cowboy.
Yep, and I bet you they were popular. Like I said, the Roosevelt thing even played in all 8 Russian time zones, and I could
Oh,
never figure out why. Then when you stop and you think about it and you look at it, Theodore Roosevelt won the Nobel Peace Prize for negotiating the peace agreement in the 1905 Russian-Japanese War, and
yeah.
so that got played over there. I uh, I kind of got taken on what they were paying, but that's okay. I obviously could not collect from Mr. Putin. He had other things on his mind, but I mean, it's popular. Like you said, Denmark. I was in Denmark last year. God, I had people come up to me and ask, is that true?
Right.
You're from North Dakota. You got Indians there. Yes, we do. Uh, and we're missing the whole thing. But if we had an opportunity for them to come up Highway 85 and do offshoots. All of these little towns would have an opportunity to bite in. You could have the cafe, you could have maybe a little museum, and these people, horses and cattle, and cowboy hats are big things.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. These guys have done a great job with the markers that have been placed. I'm intrigued by your idea, Darrell, a technology-enabled marker or something that, there ought to be an app for that, right? That
Yeah.
could share these stories. You travel, you get it on your phone. Yeah, Tom.
Darrell, how close does the Great Western Trail follow Route 85?
We're right on it
The whole way up?
in North Dakota. Yep. And
Uh-huh.
and there are offshoots there. I mean, you can turn left at Belfield and go to Medora, where Theodore Roosevelt ranched, and there were cattle that were pushed over there. And then once you get to Fort Union, which was it was the greatest shopping center of its day in the United States in the early 1800s. That was the Mall of America.
All of America. Lost Darrell again for a minute. Yep. So we'll see if Darrell can get back on. But Tom, your point is that great question. The routes that we have today still track and provide access to those historic locations up and down the trails.
Well, 85 goes directly through the Theodore Roosevelt Badlands as well. I've been to the Badlands in the Black Hills in South Dakota, but I've never been in the western part of North Dakota. I've been to Fargo. I've been to Bismarck, but I've never been down there where Medora is. Or followed Route 85, and I'm assuming that 85, since it's going north-south, also goes to South Dakota, and it follows the track of the Western Trail, Great Western Trail in South Dakota.
You're muted yet, Darrell. You're mute. Darrell, you need to unmute first.
Okay, now can you hear me again?
Yes. Yes.
1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2.
I'm hearing you, but screen
Thing is-
shows you're muted.
And just crazy.
There you go.
Well, Darrell, this is Steve Myers in Fort Worth. I had the opportunity to work with the Texas Highway Commission and also the Texas Historic Commission. And this is our program we put together. It goes through all the counties in Texas. It has maps of what the districts are. And each one of those lists all the sites that you can see in those counties. And this was done through the Texas Historic Commission and the Texas TxDOT Highway Commission. And we also have a Chisholm Trail Parkway that goes from Fort Worth to Cleburne that I was involved in. So, you know, these are all the projects. I can share information on how we all worked together and got these things accomplished here in Texas. And there's a lot of opportunity, and it can be done because we did it here in Texas. Thanks. Any questions?
Any questions or comments from anyone?
Darrell, does the I think you got lost on the last part of my question. Since 85 in North Dakota follows the Great Western Trail, does 85, at least north of Rapid City, also follow the Great Western Trail? Okay, good.
It's a question in the chat, Steve. The document that you just shared, how do we access that? How is that available?
Go
Is there a
to
cost?
the Texas Heritage Travel Guide.
It's the Texas
It's online.
Heritage Travel Guide.
Yes.
That is awesome. That we have what, 254 counties?
And the other thing is, this is the Chisholm Trail brochure that worked with the Texas Historic Commission. And it was funded by a lot of the places here in Texas. And you can look at that. It's the Chisholm Trail story here in Texas. And it's also online. And then the other thing we did, in the back of it, we have, it's called the Texas Time Travel. So for the younger generations that use their iPhone, you can type in Texas Time Travel. You can type in the Chisholm Trail, and there's videos of the vaquero, there's videos of cowboys, there's videos of the history of the Longhorns. All the history is available through these videos here in Texas. And it's all done through the Texas Historic Commission and involved in TxDOT.
Those videos are really outstanding, and the brochure is absolutely excellent. They've done such a fantastic job with that brochure. about the Chisholm Trail. Other comments, questions? Before we started today's recording, we had a key announcement about conference for this fall. Steve, would you tell us again about that conference and those upcoming dates?
The conference is going to be in Cleburne, Texas, at the end of the Chisholm Trail Expressway from Fort Worth to Cleburne. It's going to be August the 24th and
October. Check that. October.
Yeah, October the 24th and 25th at the Cleburne Outdoor Museum. Doug Harmon's collection is there at the museum of all the stuff he's collected over the years when he was involved in the history of the Chisholm Trail. And I spoke with Doug, and he's going to try to be there one day and maybe give a short speech and tell his history of what he's done here in Texas to promote the Chisholm Trail and the Great Western Trail.
So we've had the Outdoor Chisholm Trail Museum at Cleburne on Cattle Trails Showcase before. They have a brand new facility that will house Doug's artifacts in October 24, 25, that last full weekend of October. That Friday and Saturday is also the same weekend of Red Steagall's cowboy event in the stockyards in Fort Worth. So this will be a terrific opportunity. It'll be a ton of fun. Much more details to come. But we encourage you to save the dates of October 24, 25. Any other comments or questions?
Can you
Darrell,
hear me
go ahead.
now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Could Steve and Ron, could you guys get me first of all on the mailing list, okay? And Steve, can you send me some of the video stuff that's been done and some of your magazines?
Okay,
And
sure.
what I'd like to do is I will actually make an effort to try and come down in October, okay? And
Great.
you know, the key is if we could get everybody in one room, you know, from all the different states and say, hey, you know, Jesus, it's now or never, you know? We got to move and once or twice a year get everybody together and say, where are you at, you know? Uh, that little stupid idea of just walking into a concrete dealer guy, I mean that was dumb, but I got away with it and he liked history. But you know, I'm not sure how many people would be do that, you know? But once you've got that kind of thing going, it's easy to line up people. You know, it's a good project. Nobody's making any money on this,
Well,
uh, and you know, it's just there.
you know, it's interesting you said that because all the stuff that we've done has been donated
I lost you.
here in Texas. The forums, and Bob Clemming started it. He was in Oklahoma. He was with the Historic Commission in Oklahoma, and he was involved with getting everyone on board to do the programs.
And Darrell, you have spoken eloquently about the global interest, the international interest in the cowboy, and the renewed interest, thanks to television, I guess. The if we can position ourselves so that we can take advantage of that and capture that, it'll be good for the heartland, good for Middle America, great for Western history. So we really appreciate your comments there. Dwayne has made a comment in the chat with, as he describes it, the coming National Park Service austerity. It's going to make organizations like the Santa Fe Trail Association and the Oregon California Trail Association and the Western Cattle Trail Association, the International Chisholm Trail Association, the Great Western Trail. It makes our organizations all that more important. But we still believe that these historic trails have great value and are worthy of support from the national level as well. Any other comments or questions?
Ron, I see there's a couple of responses about how do you get a copy of this? It kind of makes me sit here and wonder, we talk about organizing, but maybe what we need to organize is just each state provide what they already have, and we compile that into somehow into our efforts, so that you can go to a website and say, hey, if you want to know something about North Dakota, here's some information, or you want to know about Texas, here's the information available, Kansas. It seems like that might be a
Well,
first step.
that's good, Lonnie. Why don't, when we all come together in Cleburne, let's all bring some stuff from our states and information that we can share with everyone.
That'd be great.
Sure would. And then see how we can get to a website that we could enhance and make all that info online.
Can you hear me again?
Yes.
Okay. If we could each, and I hesitate to do this because I do it so often, but if each of the groups could get their hands on $5,000 or $10,000 and we throw it in a pot and name somebody the secretary treasurer, and I'm not going to be that person, okay? But it would allow us an opportunity to start this website thing that we're talking about. The Custer Association of Great Britain, I think, will meet in November again. It would be fun to take this over to them, and play it. I've done that in the past. They've actually paid myself and a guy named Sandy Barnard to come over and lecture them. And but I mean, if we could just get going and get everybody together. Yeah, and I want to deeply apologize for how bad this situation is here with the computers, but ever since that hurricane, and now they're trying to redo everything in this area that I live in, God, it just keeps going in and out, and I apologize deeply for that, okay?
Hey, Bob.
Okay.
Yes,
Bob, could you address that about the websites?
yes. Well, we would be happy to donate we donate a lot of websites, and we've got one for the Great Western Cattle Trail, which started out to include, and we've got Darrell's information on that from North Dakota, as well as we've got the Texas information. But then we ran into difficulty with getting some of the other states to be involved. But one of the best ways to do this is a box account where you can put videos and PDF files, and then and we do that all the time. And I mean, I'm president of the Academy of Western Artists, and all these artists and saddle makers and silversmiths and musicians and so on upload videos and all of that into. We create a box folder for each one of them. They upload them. Then we have editors, volunteer editors, who go in and pick up that information and make it available on the website. I mean, you can't just dump it all into a bucket and it be available then. It has to be processed out and either put into an HTML file or a PDF file, and then you've got to have the interface program to get to it. And that also includes videos, audio, video, images, and text. And those are the 4 parts that you have to do in order to get the website done. I'll be happy to donate the website. And if I can get some of you to be some of the editors, we can train you to do that. And you don't have to come to Fort Worth to be trained. We can train you online. So I've got people who do that. And many of you have the skills already to be able to use in that process. And if you know of especially young people, this is one of the best ways to get young people involved in history, is get them to edit it. And once they start reading it and find out what it is, they say, hey, I'd like to have more of this. And they get interested in it. And we've got to cultivate the young people, because I'm looking at this screen and I see what, 1, 2, maybe 3 people under 50. Those of us that are, as Darrell said earlier, long in the tooth, but we're still around. but we need young people. And the only way to do that's get them involved.
Absolutely.
Many of
yeah.
them can work from home. They can do it at night. They can do it in the morning. But I can put the infrastructure together. But then we've got to have all of you guys to help. So whatever your area is, whatever your trail is, we need you to be responsible for it. Gather the information, and the primary thing is be able to gather the stories, because the stories are what are important. The history itself, we can put the framework of the history. It's all in many of the academic books. But what's not in the academic books are the stories of the trail drivers and those of us who grew up because of the trail and are a product of the trail. I mean, I'm here because of the Chisholm Trail. My great-grandfather found my great-grandmother because he went to see the Chicago stockyards and was put off in Illinois in a town he didn't even know about. And he met her at the desk. She was her father. I've told everybody that story, but he came back and spent a month in that town, and then came back to Kansas, bought a horse, came back to Texas. Next trip up by himself, he got back on the train, went up there and spent a month. He convinced her to marry him, her father and brothers to sell the hotel and come to Texas. And as soon as they got to Texas in 4 wagons, they had a wedding in Brushy Creek, Texas, just north of Austin, and that's my great-grandmother, Mary Ann Nash Saul. And I'm here because of that. So that's one of the reasons I like history. So
hey,
we're
Bob.
so thankful.
Hey, Bob, when I was down in Stephenville talking to the people of the Texas Folklore Society,
yes,
they had great things to tell me about your program you had for the cowboy poetry gathering. And I was thinking, what do you think of having a junior cowboy poetry group in Cleburne sometime to get the younger people?
We've got the Buckaroos here at the stockyards, and I think we could have a group down at Cleburne, and we have a youth poetry contest. This past year, we had over 200 entries from all over the nation into a youth poetry contest in Alpine, Texas. And I had 3 volunteers running the whole deal. And it didn't cost us a penny, except it was on the internet. And
we're so grateful.
Young people.
We're so grateful, Bob, to you and your team, and we're so grateful to Darrell. We've reached our time boundary in terms of our Cattle Trails Showcase for today, but we're going to keep working on these issues. And the suggestion for us all to come together is a great one, and let's do that. Let's all come together October 24, 25 in Cleburne, Texas. And I agree with Andra that Bob should be a Hall of Famer in our book. For now, we're still working on exact plans for our program for April 11, but mark Friday, April 11 for our next Cattle Trails Showcase. And until next time, this is Ron Wilson, Poet Laureate, saying thanks for taking time to join us in this place, and come on back next month for our Cattle Trails Showcase. Happy trails. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.